The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Voltarian scout fleet, their sleek vessels shaped like elongated teardrops with glowing blue engines, maintained perfect formation as they awaited the arrival of the newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. Admiral Krill stood on the command deck of the flagship Stellar Harmony, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back. His pale blue skin reflected the soft light of the bridge monitors, while his large eyes blinked methodically as he watched the empty space where the human vessel was expected to appear. "Status report?" Krill demanded, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into the common galactic language. "The temporal window is accurate, Admiral," replied Officer Trell, hunched over the sensor array. "The energy signature indicates the human vessel will emerge within the next few minutes." Krill nodded with satisfaction. The Galactic Council had been monitoring the humans for decades. They had observed these creatures evolve from primitive radio signals to basic space exploration. The Council's policy was clear. Once a species developed FTL capability, first contact would be initiated. The humans had progressed faster than expected, but the process would follow standard protocol. "Prepare the welcome transmission," ordered Krill. "Make sure to use their primary languages and keep weapons locked down. We don't want to frighten them." The bridge crew worked efficiently, preparing the diplomatic reception for what they assumed would be an excited, probably nervous exploration team in a small experimental ship. All Council records suggested human FTL technology would be primitive, barely functional. They would be awed by the Voltarian fleet, grateful for the guidance of the more advanced species. "Spatial distortion detected," announced Trell suddenly, antennae twitching in alarm. "It's larger than predicted." Krill frowned. "How much larger?" Before Trell could answer, space itself seemed to tear open. The fabric of reality split, revealing a swirling blue vortex that pulsed with energy. And through this rift came a ship, not the small explorer vessel they had expected, not a diplomatic craft seeking peaceful contact. What emerged from hyperspace was massive, dark, and clearly built for war. The human battleship Deterrent cut through, the vortex like a predator entering new hunting grounds. Its hull was angular and reinforced, painted deep gray with the symbol of Earth prominently displayed. Weapon ports lined its sides, and massive engines glowed with barely contained power. It was at least 3 times larger than the Voltarian flagship and radiated military purpose from every plate of its armor. Silence fell over the Voltarian bridge. "By the Founders," whispered Krill, his skin paling further. "What have they sent us?" On board the Deterrent, Captain James Wilson sat calmly in the command chair. A veteran of Earth's Space Force, he had been chosen to lead humanity's first interstellar military vessel. At 52, with gray hair cropped short and deep lines etched into his weathered face, Wilson embodied the careful balance of exploration and caution that had guided humanity's approach to the stars. "All systems nominal after transition," reported First Officer Mike Rogers, a broad-shouldered man with dark skin and watchful eyes. "Sensors detecting multiple vessels at coordinates 330 Mark 42. Wilson nodded. "Defensive systems?" "Ready but inactive, sir," answered Tactical Officer Marcus Reed, his fingers hovering over his console. "As per first contact protocol." Wilson studied the alien vessels on the main view screen. They were beautiful but clearly armed. Intelligence had suggested they might encounter other species once they ventured beyond the solar system, but no one had expected a welcoming committee. "Open communications," Wilson ordered. "Standard greeting package on all frequencies." Communications Officer Linda Foster nodded. "Transmitting now, Captain." The bridge of the Deterrent was a model of efficient design. Unlike the flowing, organic layouts of the Voltarian ships, the human vessel was built with function over form. Every station had clear sight lines to the captain's position, and hardened backup systems ensured nothing short of catastrophic damage could disable the ship's ability to fight. Aboard the Stellar Harmony, panic was spreading. "The human vessel is heavily armed," exclaimed the weapons officer. "I count multiple missile tubes, energy weapon emplacements, and what appears to be some form of mass driver technology." Krill's mind raced. Everything they knew about human development suggested this level of technology should be decades beyond their reach. Had their intelligence been wrong? Or worse, had the humans somehow detected their monitoring and accelerated their military development in preparation for conflict? They're transmitting, said the communications officer. Audio and visual signals. On screen, ordered Krill, straightening his posture. The image of Captain Wilson appeared on the main display. The alien crew stared at the human with a mixture of fascination and fear. The captain's calm expression belied the massive war machine he commanded. "This is Captain James Wilson of the Earth vessel Deterrent," he said, his voice steady. "We come in peace and seek diplomatic relations with your species." Krill studied the human's face, trying to detect deception. Come in peace? In a battleship? Sensors? "Detect their weapons systems are powering up," shouted the tactical officer suddenly. "Impossible." Krill turned to his crew. "Are you certain?" On the Deterrent, alarm suddenly blared. "Captain, the alien vessels are moving into attack formation," reported Reed. "Energy readings indicate weapon charging." Wilson frowned. "Have they responded to our transmission?" "No, sir," Foster replied, looking confused. "But our sensors might be misreading their power signatures. Their technology is different from ours." Wilson made a split-second decision. "Raise shields, but keep weapons cold. We're not firing first." The massive shields of the Deterrent flickered to life, a transparent bubble of energy enveloping the warship. To the Voltarians, this action confirmed their fears. "They've activated defensive systems," shouted Trell. "Attack imminent." Krill hesitated. This was not how first contact was supposed to proceed. But facing an unknown warship of unexpected capability, he couldn't risk his fleet. "Fire warning shots," Krill ordered finally. "Target their forward path, not the vessel itself." The Voltarian escort ships released pulses of energy that streaked past the human battleship, deliberately missing but sending a clear message. Wilson's eyes narrowed as he watched the energy beams pass by his ship. "That was deliberate," said Rogers. "They missed on purpose." "Or their weapons are less accurate than we thought," countered Reed. "Permission to return fire, sir?" Wilson shook his head. "No, but show them we can defend ourselves. Target the nearest empty space with point defense systems only." The Deterrent responded with a precise demonstration of its capabilities. Small defense turrets tracked and fired at nothing, but the message was clear. The humans could have hit targets if they wished to. Both sides watched each other, weapons hot, misunderstanding deepening by the second. "Sir," said Foster quietly, "I believe this is a miscommunication. Their warning shots suggest they're afraid of us." Wilson nodded, slowly. "And our ship isn't exactly screaming, 'We come in peace,' is it?" The irony wasn't lost on him. Humanity had sent its most powerful ship as a precaution against unknown threats, but in doing so, they had become the threat. Across the void of space, Admiral Krill came to a similar realization, but reached a different conclusion. "All ships, maintain battle readiness," he commanded, "and contact the Galactic Council immediately. The humans aren't the peaceful explorers we expected." As the standoff continued, both sides hovered on the edge of a war neither wanted, separated by a gulf of misunderstanding that seemed as vast as space itself. The tense standoff between the human battleship Deterrent and the Voltarian fleet stretched into its third hour. Captain Wilson stood at the large viewport in his ready room, hands clasped behind his back, watching the alien vessels maintain their formation. The stars beyond seemed cold and distant, unaware of the potential conflict brewing between two species meeting for the first time. A chime at his door broke the silence. "Enter," Wilson said, not turning from the view. First Officer Mike Rogers stepped inside, tablet in hand. His usually confident stance was tempered with concern. "Captain, we've received a transmission from the alien fleet. Our translators have processed it enough to understand the basics." Wilson finally turned. "And they're demanding our immediate surrender," Rogers said, his expression grim. "They claim to represent something called the Galactic Council of Allied Species. According to them, we violated protocol by arriving in a military vessel." Wilson's jaw tightened. "Surrender is not an option, not without understanding what we're dealing with." Rogers nodded in agreement. Engineering and science have been analyzing the data we've gathered on their ships. You'll want to see this. He handed the tablet to Wilson, who studied the information with growing interest. Diagrams of the alien vessels showed their weapon systems, shield capabilities, and power distribution networks. "This can't be right," Wilson muttered. Science Officer Foster triple-checked the readings, sir. Their weapons technology is actually less advanced than ours in several key areas. Wilson walked to his desk and pressed a button on the communication panel. Foster to the ready room. Minutes later, Linda Foster entered. Her keen intelligence shone in her eyes as she took in the captain's questioning look. "Explain these readings," Wilson said, gesturing to the tablet. Foster straightened. "It appears that while the Voltarians have more advanced propulsion systems than we do, their weapons technology developed along different lines. They focused on speed and maneuverability rather than raw firepower. Their energy weapons are efficient but lack the punch of our plasma cannons. And their shields? Designed to deflect their own weapon types but potentially vulnerable to ours," Foster explained. "It's as if we each climbed different sides of the same mountain." Wilson considered this information. "What about their numbers advantage?" "Substantial," Rogers admitted. "We count 23 vessels in total, with more likely within call range." Wilson returned to the viewport, thinking. "They expect us to surrender to superior numbers, but they don't know what we're capable of." Back on the EO, Bridge of the Stellar Harmony, Admiral Krill received troubling news. "The humans are not responding to our surrender demand," reported Officer Trell. "And the Galactic Council wants us to resolve this without conflict if possible. They're sending representatives, but they won't arrive for days." Krill hissed in frustration. "Continue the encirclement. Prepare boarding parties as a contingency." A junior communications officer approached cautiously. "Admiral, we've been analyzing their transmissions. There's something strange about their language patterns." "Explain," Krill demanded. "Their communications contain numerous references to historical battles, military strategies, and combat outcomes. It suggests their society places high value on warfare knowledge." Krill's skin rippled with concern. "A warrior culture with advanced weaponry. This confirms my fears." Aboard the Deterrent, Wilson called an emergency meeting of his senior staff in the ship's tactical center. A holographic display of the alien fleet floated above the central table. "We're outnumbered but not necessarily outgunned," Wilson began. "I want options that don't involve starting an interstellar war." Chief Engineer Tom Garcia, a stocky man with perpetually grease-stained hands, pointed to a specific section of the alien ships. "Their power distribution network has redundancies, but they all channel through these junction points. A precise hit wouldn't destroy the ships but could temporarily disable them." Tactical Officer Marcus Reed nodded eagerly. "My team has been running simulations. With carefully calibrated shots, we could disable multiple vessels without casualties." "And what stops them from calling for reinforcements?" Rogers asked. "The ship's AI, Atlas," answered through the room's speakers. "I've identified their communication frequencies. We could jam them temporarily, but it would reveal our electronic warfare capabilities." Wilson looked around the table at his crew. Earth's finest, chosen for this mission not just for their skills but for their judgment. The fate of humanity's first interstellar contact rested on their decisions. "We need to demonstrate strength, without aggression," Wilson decided. "Linda, keep working on their language. Mike, prepare a message explaining our peaceful intentions despite our military vessel. Tom, I want engines at full capacity. We may need to move quickly." As the meeting concluded, Foster lingered. "Captain, there's something else you should see." She pulled up new data on the display. "I've been analyzing their communication patterns between ships. They're afraid of us. Specifically, they fear human unpredictability. Several messages mention something called the isolation effect." Wilson's eyebrows rose. "Meaning?" "I believe they've been observing Earth for some time, but without direct contact. They expected us to develop along certain technological lines. Our different approach has them concerned." Wilson processed this information. "They fear what they don't understand. A universal constant, it seems." On the bridge of the Stellar Harmony, tension mounted as officers reported the human vessel's power systems showing increased activity. "They're preparing something," Krill declared. "Tighten the formation, no ship fires without my command." The alien vessels moved closer together, creating an impenetrable wall around the human battleship. Their sleek forms glided with perfect coordination, a testament to their advanced propulsion technology. What happened next shocked them all. The deterrent suddenly accelerated, but not toward any of the surrounding ships. Instead, it shot straight, upward relative to the plane of the formation, moving at speeds the aliens hadn't predicted possible for a vessel of its size. "Track them," shouted Krill as his bridge erupted in chaos. "All ships, adjust formation." But the human battleship had already executed another maneuver, cutting its main engines and rotating on its axis using maneuvering thrusters alone. Before the alien fleet could reposition, the deterrent fired its engines again, blasting through a gap in the formation that hadn't existed seconds before. "Impossible," whispered Trell, watching the tactical display. "Their maneuverability should be limited by their mass." Krill stared at the screen in disbelief. They're not following conventional physics for vessels of that size. Aboard the deterrent, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency as the ship completed its escape maneuver. "Formation successfully breached, Captain," reported Reed, unable to keep a note of pride from his voice. "The alien fleet is attempting to regroup, but we've bought ourselves some time." "Well done," Wilson acknowledged. "Atlas, what did our sensors learn during close passage?" The AI responded promptly. "I've identified 7 distinct shield frequencies among their vessels. Our weapons can be calibrated to penetrate all but the flagship's defenses." Rogers looked at Wilson. "They underestimated us. Their encirclement strategy assumed we'd behave like their ships." Wilson nodded. "And now they know we don't. Foster, is our message ready?" "Yes, Captain. Translated into what we believe is their common language. Transmit to all their vessels," Wilson ordered, "and prepare for their response. They won't take this demonstration lightly." The message that streamed to the alien fleet was simple, but powerful. Humans came seeking peace, but would not surrender their ship. They requested proper diplomatic contact and offered to share information about Earth in exchange for knowledge about the Galactic Council. As Admiral Krill watched the human message, his understanding of the situation shifted dramatically. These weren't just warriors. They were innovators who had developed technology along entirely different paths than the Council races. "They escaped our best containment formation," his tactical officer reported. "And they did it without firing a single shot." Krill's 4-fingered hand clenched into a fist. "Because they didn't need to. They were showing us they could have fought if they wanted to." A new respect for these humans began to form in Krill's mind, mingled with continued caution. If one human ship could outmaneuver his entire fleet, what else were they capable of? As the deterrent maintained its position at a safe distance, both sides reassessed their understanding of the other. The first battle had been fought not with weapons, but with movement and message, and the humans had gained the upper hand. The real question now was what would happen next. The humans had demonstrated both their capability and their restraint, a combination the Voltarians hadn't expected and didn't fully understand. Admiral Krill paced the bridge of the Stellar Harmony, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. The escape of the human vessel had been reported to the Galactic Council, and their response was clear. Contain the potential threat until diplomats arrived. "Status of the fleet?" Krill demanded. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," Officer Trell responded. "The reinforcements from the Century outpost have arrived." The tactical display showed 47 ships now under Krill's command, more than double his original force. The Council was taking no chances with this unpredictable new species, and the human vessel? "Holding position near the edge of the Maelstrom Nebula," said Trell, pointing to the swirling mass of colorful gases visible on the long-range scanners. "They haven't moved in the last 2 hours." Krill studied the nebula with narrowed eyes. The Maelstrom was notorious for its electromagnetic interference and unpredictable radiation storms. Most spacefaring species avoided it entirely. "They're planning something," Krill muttered. No species would position themselves so close to such a dangerous anomaly by accident. He straightened his uniform and made his decision. Prepare the fleet for pursuit. Formation Delta 7, spread wide enough to prevent another breakout maneuver. As the Voltarian fleet began to move, Krill couldn't shake the feeling that he was being drawn into a trap. Aboard the Deterrent, Captain Wilson watched the alien fleet's approach on the main view screen. Their formation was impressive, a wide net designed to catch the human ship no matter which way it fled. They've committed to pursuit, First Officer Rogers observed. 47 ships now. Wilson nodded grimly. A show of force to intimidate us. It's working on me a little, muttered Chief Engineer Garcia, who had joined them on the bridge. His hands were stained with coolant fluid and dark circles under his eyes testified to hours of emergency repairs. Status of the ship? Wilson asked him. Garcia wiped his hands on a rag. I've got the starboard maneuvering thrusters back online, but the main deflector is still operating at 60%. That last high-speed maneuver put strain on systems that weren't designed for repeated combat evasions. We need more time. For repairs, Wilson concluded. The nebula could provide cover, suggested Rogers, gesturing toward the colorful gas clouds. But it's risky. Our sensors would be compromised and radiation levels are high. Wilson's eyes remained fixed on the approaching alien fleet. Atlas, analysis of the nebula composition? The ship's AI responded promptly. The Maelstrom Nebula contains elevated levels of ionized hydrogen, trace elements of thorium, and quantum particles in an excited state. These conditions will reduce sensor range by approximately 78% and disrupt communications. However, these same properties would affect pursuing vessels equally. Science Officer Foster looked up from her station. Captain, I've been analyzing the alien fleet's formation. Their ships maintain perfect spacing, almost too perfect. Meaning? Wilson prompted. They rely heavily on centralized coordination. Foster explained. If we can disrupt their command and control, their formation advantage becomes a weakness. Wilson considered this information, then turned to Tactical Officer Reed. Can we use the nebula's properties to our advantage? Reed's fingers danced across his console, running simulations. If we calibrate our shields to the specific radiation frequency in the nebula, we could maintain limited sensor functionality while they'd be flying blind. Wilson made his decision. Set course for the densest part of the nebula, full impulse. Mr. Garcia, I need those repairs completed inside the cloud cover. Garcia nodded. My team will work faster than those aliens can follow. The massive engines of the Deterrent flared to life, propelling the battleship toward the swirling colors of the Maelstrom. Behind them, the alien fleet accelerated in pursuit. On the Stellar Harmony, alarms sounded as the tracking systems registered the human ship's movement. They're heading directly into the nebula, reported the sensor officer. Pursuing at that speed through the outer layers would stress our shield systems. Krill slammed his fist on the arm of his command chair. Reduce speed to safe nebula entry parameters. We'll follow them in carefully. But Admiral, protested his second-in-command, we'll lose them in the interference. Better to lose sight of them temporarily than lose ships to nebula radiation, Krill replied firmly. Besides, they can't hide forever. The nebula is large, but not infinite. As the Deterrent plunged into the colorful gases, the bridge lighting automatically dimmed to compensate for the brilliant swirls outside the viewports. Clouds of purple, green, and blue engulfed the ship, reducing visibility to near zero. Shields holding at 83%, reported Reed. Radiation levels elevated but within safe parameters. Foster worked frantically at her station. Recalibrating. Sensors now. The nebula's interference is stronger than anticipated. Wilson turned to Rogers. Now comes the hard part. We need to turn this environment into our battlefield. In the engineering section, Garcia and his team worked with desperate speed. The chief engineer directed repairs from beneath an open panel, his voice echoing through the compartment. Mason, reroute the auxiliary power through the secondary coupling. Lee, I need those shield modulators reconfigured to compensate for the radiation spikes. A young engineer named Jones approached cautiously. Sir, the main deflector's power conduits are fused. We can't get them back above 60% without a complete replacement. Garcia emerged from the panel, his face streaked with sweat and grime. Then we get creative. Pull the backup targeting array's power converter and adapt it for the deflector grid. That's not in any repair manual, sir, Jones replied, looking uncertain. Garcia grinned. Welcome to deep space, kid. The manual only gets you so far. As the engineering team improvised repairs, the deterrent moved deeper into the nebula, the gases growing thicker around the hull. The pursuing fleet, forced to reduce speed, began to fall behind. On the bridge, Wilson reviewed Reed's tactical proposals. Guerrilla warfare, he mused. Hit and fade attacks? Reed nodded. The nebula gives us the perfect environment. We can detect them before they detect us, strike quickly, and disappear back into the gases. Our goal isn't to destroy their ships, Wilson reminded him. Just demonstrate that conflict isn't in their best interest. Understood, sir. Precision strikes only. Targeting engines and sensors, not life support or command centers. Foster suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, I'm picking up scattered communications between their ships. Their formation is breaking down. In the nebula, Atlas added. Analysis indicates 17 distinct groups have formed as ships lose contact with each other. A slow smile formed on Wilson's face. Just as we hoped, their perfect formation falls apart without constant coordination. He opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to execute a series of limited engagements against the pursuing alien fleet. Our objective is not destruction, but demonstration. Show them our precision, our restraint, and our resolve. The deterrent turned in the colorful mists, its powerful engines barely a whisper as it stalked its first target. Admiral Krill's frustration mounted as communication with his fleet deteriorated. The neat formation had dissolved into clusters of ships struggling to maintain position in the disorienting environment. Any sign of the human vessel? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, a brilliant flash illuminated the nebula to their port side. Moments later, a distress call broke through the static. This is the cruiser Swift Justice. We've been hit. Engines and weapons offline. Attack came without warning. Another flash, another distress call. Then another. 3 ships disabled in under 5 minutes, Trell reported, his voice tight with tension. No casualties reported. They're targeting systems, not crew. Krill stared into the colorful void outside his viewport. These humans were proving to be unlike any species the Council had encountered before. They fought not with overwhelming force, but with precision and purpose. Most troubling of all, they seemed to be sending a message with each disabled ship, a message that combined military prowess with merciful restraint. As the nebula swirled around them, Krill began to wonder if the Galactic Council had made a grave mistake in their approach to this new species. The humans weren't behaving like conquerors or savages. They were behaving like teachers delivering a painful but necessary lesson. The nebula's swirling gases parted briefly, revealing the disabled Voltarian cruiser, Swift Justice, drifting helplessly. Its engines emitted occasional sparks, but its weapons systems remained dark. Captain Wilson observed the ship on the main view screen of the deterrent, his expression thoughtful. 7th ship disabled, reported Tactical Officer Reed. Still no casualties on any vessel. And our status? Wilson asked. Shield strength at 72%, Rogers answered. We've taken minor damage from nebula radiation, but nothing critical. Engineering reports all systems functional. Wilson nodded and rose from his command chair. The past 6 hours had been a carefully orchestrated demonstration of human capabilities. The deterrent had emerged from the nebula's cover, struck with surgical precision, then vanished back into the colorful mists before the aliens could effectively respond. Any change in their communications? Wilson asked Foster. The science officer looked up from her station. Yes, Captain. Increased chatter between their ships. Our translators are still working on the details, but the tone has shifted. There's dissension in their ranks. Atlas, the ship's AI, added, I've detected 3 distinct communication groups forming within their fleet. One continues to advocate aggressive pursuit, but two others are questioning the wisdom of this approach. Wilson smiled slightly. Division in the command structure, just what we needed. Cultural Officer Anna Parker, who had remained quiet during the tactical operations, finally spoke up. "Captain, this might be the perfect time to try a different approach." All eyes turned to Parker. With her background in xenoanthropology, she had been studying the alien communications intently, trying to understand their society and values. "What do you suggest?" Wilson asked. Parker stood and approached the tactical display. "These aliens, the Voltarians, operate on hierarchy and consensus. Their aggressive response was triggered by fear of our unexpected military capability. But now we've demonstrated that capability while also showing restraint. They're confused by our contradictory behavior." "We didn't kill anyone," Reed pointed out. "Exactly," Parker said. "In their eyes, a species with superior tactical ability would naturally use it to eliminate threats. Our precision strikes without casualties don't fit their understanding of military species." Wilson considered this. "So we've created cognitive dissonance." "Yes," Parker confirmed. "And now we should offer them a way to resolve that dissonance. I suggest a direct communication, not just technical information but cultural context. Help them understand why humans built the deterrent." After a moment of thought, Wilson nodded. "Prepare a transmission. Include historical context about Earth's development and our values. Make it clear that our ship's name, Deterrent, reflects its purpose." As Parker left to craft the message, Wilson turned to Rogers. "It's time to come out of hiding. Take us to the edge of the nebula, maintain defensive posture but keep weapons powered down." The massive battleship emerged from the colorful gases like a sea creature surfacing from the depths. Its dark hull reflected the nebula's light as it took position just outside the interference zone. Aboard the Stellar Harmony, Admiral Krill received the news of the human ship's emergence with surprise. "They're just waiting there?" he asked, incredulously. "Yes, Admiral," confirmed Trell. "Their weapon systems appear inactive, but shields remain at high power." "It could be a trap," suggested his second-in-command. Krill shook his head slowly. "No, they've had ample opportunity to destroy our ships, yet they chose disablement instead. They're sending a message." A communications officer approached cautiously. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. It's extensive." "On screen," Krill ordered. The message that appeared was unlike anything the Voltarians had expected. Instead of demands or threats, it began with a brief history of human development on Earth. It spoke of a species that evolved on a harsh world with numerous predators, forced to develop intelligence and tools to survive. It detailed humanity's fractured political system. Dozens of nations with different values and objectives, sometimes cooperating, sometimes in conflict. Most importantly, it explained the deterrent. Our vessel was not designed for conquest. Captain Wilson's recorded image explained. It was built as a shield, not a sword. Humanity united to create it because we didn't know what we would find among the stars. We hoped for peace but prepared for danger, a principle that has guided human exploration throughout our history. The message continued with cultural information, scientific achievements, and an offer of peaceful exchange. It concluded with a simple statement. "We seek understanding, not surrender, yours or ours." As the transmission ended, silence fell over the Voltarian bridge. "The Galactic Council must see this," Krill said finally. Before any officer could respond, a new ship emerged from faster-than-light travel near the edge of the nebula. Its design was different from both the human and Voltarian vessels, more curved, with iridescent hull plating that shifted colors in the starlight. "Tellurian diplomatic vessel Concord requesting communication," announced the communications officer. Krill straightened his uniform. The Tellurians were respected mediators within the Galactic Council, known for their neutrality and wisdom. Their arrival meant the Council was taking the situation very seriously. "Establish contact," Krill ordered, "and inform the humans of the Tellurian arrival." On the deterrent, Wilson received the news with cautious optimism. The Tellurians are requesting a meeting aboard their vessel, Foster reported. They're offering to serve as neutral mediators between us and the Voltarian fleet. Wilson glanced at Parker. Assessment? This is a positive development, she replied. In their message, the Tellurians referred to us as a potential allied species, not as a threat. It suggests at least some members of their Galactic Council are open to diplomatic relations. Wilson made his decision. I'll lead the delegation. Rogers, Parker, you're with me. Reed, you have command. Maintain alert status, but take no aggressive action unless directly threatened. As preparations for the meeting began, Engineer Garcia approached Wilson in the corridor. Captain, before you go, there's something you should know, he said quietly. During our last engagement, I detected an unusual energy signature from one of the alien ships. It wasn't Voltarian. The frequency was completely different. Wilson frowned. Meaning? There might be another player involved, Garcia suggested. A ship that doesn't belong to either fleet. This troubling information followed Wilson as he boarded the shuttle that would take him to the Tellurian vessel. The situation was growing more complex by the hour. The Tellurian ship Concord was as beautiful inside as out. Curved corridors led to a circular meeting chamber where representatives from all three species gathered. The Tellurians themselves were tall, slender beings with opalescent skin that seemed to shimmer with subtle colors as they moved. Welcome, greeted the Tellurian mediator, who introduced himself as Ambassador Leary. We observe a situation that requires understanding rather than conflict. Admiral Krill and his officers sat across from Wilson's team, their postures stiff with lingering suspicion. The human vessel violated Council protocol by arriving in military form, Krill began immediately. Wilson remained calm. We weren't aware of your protocols. From our perspective, we entered unknown space and were surrounded by armed vessels. Ambassador Leary raised a long-fingered hand. Perhaps we should begin with more fundamental matters. Captain Wilson, please explain human development and your relationship with technology. For the next hour, Wilson and Parker shared Earth's history, its diverse cultures, and humanity's philosophical approach to exploration. They explained how humanity's evolution on a dangerous planet had instilled both caution and curiosity. When they finished, Ambassador Leary turned to Krill. Admiral, please share the Council's perspective and concerns. Krill spoke of the Galactic Council's long history of guiding new species into the interstellar community. He explained their protocols for first contact, always with diplomatic vessels, never with warships. We feared your military vessel represented conquest intentions, Krill admitted. Many younger species seek to expand aggressively when they first achieve faster-than-light travel. As understanding began to grow between the groups, a sudden alarm blared throughout the Tellurian ship. A crew member rushed into the chamber. Ambassador, sensors detect an antimatter surge on the Voltarian flagship. It's building toward critical levels. Krill stood abruptly. Impossible. Our ships don't use antimatter technology. Wilson's eyes met Garcia's warning in his mind. Without hesitation, he activated his communicator. Deterrent, this is Wilson. Lock onto the Voltarian flagship and scan for unauthorized energy signatures, then prepare emergency transport for their crew if needed. As chaos erupted in the meeting chamber, the first real test of human-alien cooperation began, not in diplomacy, but in preventing a catastrophe that threatened them all. The emergency lighting bathed the Tellurian diplomatic vessel Concord in an eerie red glow. Ambassador. Leary's normally opalescent skin now reflected the crimson warning signals as he coordinated with his crew. Admiral Krill was shouting orders into his communicator, while Captain Wilson maintained a focused calm. Antimatter readings increasing on the stellar harmony, reported a Tellurian technician. Estimate 8 minutes until catastrophic containment. Failure. My ship doesn't contain antimatter technology, Krill insisted, his translator barely keeping up with his agitated clicks and whistles. This is sabotage. Wilson turned to Rogers. Contact the deterrent. I want Reed's scan results immediately. Rogers nodded and stepped aside to communicate with their ship. He returned moments later, his expression grave. Captain, Reed confirms an antimatter pulse generator has been installed on the Voltarian flagship. It's not of Voltarian design. The energy signature matches nothing in our database. Wilson's eyes narrowed. A third party. Ambassador Leary looked between them. What does this mean? It means, Wilson said grimly, someone wants this. First contact to end in disaster. Krill's skin paled to an almost white shade. If my flagship explodes near the Tellurian diplomatic vessel with both our species representatives aboard, war would be inevitable, finished Wilson. We need to act now. He activated his communicator, again. Wilson to deterrent. Move to intercept the Stellar Harmony immediately. Prepare for emergency transport of their crew. Have engineering and medical standby. Ambassador Leary stepped forward. Captain Wilson, what are you planning? My ship has the strongest shields in either fleet, Wilson explained quickly. We can position ourselves near the Voltarian flagship, evacuate their crew, then use our tractor beam to move the vessel away from the fleet before it detonates. Krill stared at Wilson with new understanding. You would risk your vessel to save mine? That's what the deterrent was built for, Wilson replied simply. To protect. The Voltarian admiral straightened to his full height. I will return to my ship. My crew will resist evacuation from strangers. There's no time, Rogers protested. Actually, Wilson said thoughtfully, the admiral's presence could be crucial. Admiral Krill, would you accompany me to the deterrent? Your authority could save precious minutes. After a moment's hesitation, Krill nodded. Yes. Ambassador Leary watched this exchange with interest. The Galactic Council will be informed of these developments immediately. I believe they will wish to witness how humans respond to crisis firsthand. Within minutes, Wilson, Rogers, Parker, and Admiral Krill were aboard a shuttle racing back to the deterrent. As they approached, the massive human battleship was already moving toward the stricken Voltarian flagship, its powerful engines glowing against the backdrop of stars. The shuttle bay doors opened, and the small craft landed with a gentle thud. Wilson led the group at a run toward the bridge, explaining the situation to confused crew members as they passed. When they reached the bridge, Tactical Officer Reed relinquished command immediately. Captain on deck. Status report, Wilson demanded, taking his seat. We're approaching the Stellar Harmony now, Reed replied. Antimatter signatures continuing to rise. Engineering reports transporter systems ready for mass evacuation. Wilson turned to Admiral Krill. We need your help. Your crew must be told to prepare for immediate transport. Krill stepped forward without hesitation. Using the deterrent SATIA communication system, he addressed his flagship in his native language, explaining the danger and ordering cooperation with the human rescue effort. Transport beginning now, reported Reed. On the main view screen, they watched as the deterrent moved alongside the Voltarian flagship. The human battleship's size, once intimidating to the aliens, now provided reassurance as its shields extended to partially encompass the endangered vessel. 90 seconds until antimatter containment failure, Atlas announced calmly. Transport status? Wilson asked urgently. 73% of the Voltarian crew evacuated, Reed answered. Engineering reports the antimatter device is located near their engine core. It's been secured to the ship's primary power relays, making remote deactivation impossible. Wilson made a snap decision. Tractor beam. Lock onto the Stellar Harmony and move it away from both fleets. The strain on our shields will be enormous, Rogers warned. We can handle it, Wilson said confidently. Tom built this ship to take punishment. As if summoned by his name, Chief Engineer Garcia's voice came over the comms. Captain, I've got an idea. If we modify our shield harmonics to match the antimatter pulse frequency, we might be able to contain the explosion. Can you make that happen in... Wilson glanced at the countdown. 50 seconds? Already working on it, Garcia replied, the sound of frantic activity audible in the background. On the view screen, the blue glow of the deterrent's tractor beam engaged, slowly pulling the Voltarian flagship away from the gathered fleet. The stars seemed to shift as both ships moved toward empty space. Remaining Voltarian crew? Wilson asked. Evacuation complete, Reed confirmed. All souls accounted for. Admiral Krill stepped forward to stand beside Wilson's command chair. For a moment, the human captain and alien admiral watched the screen together, united by crisis. 20 seconds. To containment failure, Atlas announced. Shields modified, reported Garcia over the comms. It's not perfect, but it should contain most of the blast. Brace for impact, Wilson ordered. All hands, secure positions. The countdown reached 0, and for a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, a blinding flash erupted from the Voltarian flagship. The deterrent shuddered violently as the force of the explosion tested its enhanced shields. Warning alarms blared across the bridge. Shield status, Wilson called out above the noise. Holding at 37%, Reed replied, his fingers dancing across his console to redistribute power. The containment modifications worked. As the glare faded from the viewscreen, they could see the Voltarian flagship, or what remained of it. The once proud vessel was now a twisted hulk of metal, its rear sections completely destroyed, but the explosion had been contained, preventing a chain reaction that could have damaged nearby ships. A respectful silence fell over the bridge. Admiral Krill was the first to speak. You saved my crew, and prevented a war. Wilson nodded solemnly. That's what the deterrent was built for. 3 days later, Captain Wilson stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, their murmured conversations creating a symphony of languages as they awaited the Council's decision. Behind Wilson stood his senior staff, Rogers, Foster, Reed, Garcia, and Parker. They wore their formal uniforms, representing humanity before the assembled species of the galaxy. Admiral Krill approached them, now dressed in ceremonial garb that indicated his high status. The Council has completed their deliberations, he informed them. The saboteur has been identified, a member of the Vex Collective, a splinter group opposed to expanding the Council's membership. Wilson nodded. I'm glad justice will be served. More importantly, Krill continued, your actions have changed many minds. The Council now sees humans not as a threat, but as potential allies. Ambassador Leary joined them, his skin shifting, through colors that indicated pleasure in the Tellurian emotional spectrum. Captain Wilson, the Council is ready to announce their decision regarding Earth's status. The chamber quieted as 7 elder members of the Galactic Council took their positions on the raised dais. The central figure, a being with crystalline features that caught and reflected the light, spoke in a resonant voice. After reviewing the events surrounding first contact with humanity, this council has reached a unanimous decision. Earth will be granted conditional membership in the Galactic Alliance, with full privileges to be extended after a probationary period of 1 standard galactic year. Applause and various sounds of approval echoed through the chamber. Furthermore, the crystalline being continued, we acknowledge the unique approach humanity has demonstrated, combining defensive capability with restraint and cooperation. The human vessel deterrent will be registered in Council records not as a warship, but as a Defender-class vessel, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Wilson felt a surge of pride. The deterrent had fulfilled its purpose beyond anyone's expectations. As the ceremony concluded, Krill approached Wilson one final time. Our species began as adversaries, the Admiral said, extending his forefingered hand in what he had learned was a human gesture of friendship. I believe we will continue as allies. Wilson accepted the handshake. Different paths up the same mountain, he said, recalling Foster's earlier words. Krill's translator clicked as he considered this. Yes, and perhaps humans will show us new paths we never considered. As they left the council chamber, the crew of the deterrent could see through a massive viewport where their ship waited in orbit. Its powerful form, once perceived as threatening, now represented something different to the assembled species. A reminder that true strength lay not just in having the capability for conflict, but in choosing when not to use it. The human battleship had come as a defender, and in doing so had opened the stars to humanity.